I stood frozen in the bustling airport terminal, watching as my mother walked away with her new husband and his children. My suitcase sat beside me like a lonely sentinel. "Mom, what about my ticket?" The words barely escaped my throat. She turned, her designer sunglasses hiding any trace of maternal concern. "You can figure it out, Braxton," she shrugged, already turning away. "We can't miss our flight." At 15 years old, I watched my only family disappear into the crowd, leaving me completely alone with nowhere to go. Life before that terrible day at the airport had been a slow descent into invisibility. When my parents divorced 2 years earlier, I was 13 and convinced the world was ending. Dad disappeared from our lives almost immediately, and Mom spun a narrative about him abandoning us that I never questioned. Why would I? She was my mother, the one constant in my increasingly unstable life. Then came Trevor Williams, wealthy businessman and my mother's ticket to the lifestyle she always claimed she deserved. Their whirlwind romance lasted exactly 3 months before they were engaged. The wedding was lavish, with no expense spared. I remember standing awkwardly in an ill-fitting suit as Mom beamed at her new husband and his 2 children, Jordan and Abigail, 16 and 14 respectively. "We're going to be one big happy family," she had promised, her hand squeezing mine with unusual force. "You'll have siblings now. Isn't that wonderful?" But the reality of our big happy family revealed itself quickly. Within weeks of moving into Trevor's sprawling suburban home, the transformation began. My belongings were relocated to the smallest bedroom in the house, tucked away at the end of the hallway near the laundry room. The space I had occupied in our previous home, with its large windows and built-in bookshelves, was converted into a home office for Trevor. "You should be grateful," Mom said when I expressed disappointment. "This house is 3 times the size of our old place. Some children would kill for this opportunity." The word opportunity became Mom's favorite. Everything was an opportunity I should be grateful for, even as those opportunities consistently benefited everyone but me. My basketball practices became inconvenient scheduling conflicts. My academic achievements went unacknowledged, while Jordan and Abigail received elaborate celebrations for average accomplishments. My friends stopped being invited over because they made too much noise or left a mess that was somehow worse than the chaos Trevor's kids created regularly. I became a ghost in my own home, visible only when needed for family photos or when some task required completion. My mother, once my fierce defender, now looked through me as if I were made of glass. The vacation announcement came during a rare family dinner where I was actually included. Trevor raised his glass of wine, beaming at everyone around the table. "I have a surprise for everyone," he announced. "Next month, we're all going to the Bahamas for a week of sun, sand, and family bonding." The excitement around the table was palpable. Even I felt a surge of hope that perhaps this trip would reset things, give us all a chance to connect and find our footing as a family. For weeks, I packed and repacked my suitcase, researched activities in the Bahamas, and even spent my savings on new swim trunks and sunglasses. I tried engaging Mom in conversations about our upcoming adventure, but her responses were increasingly vague and dismissive. "We'll figure out all the details soon," she would say, quickly changing the subject. 3 days before departure, I overheard a heated conversation between Mom and Trevor in their bedroom. "It's not fair to bring everyone," Trevor said, his voice low but intense. "We already discussed this," Mom replied. "Just drop it." "But the expense is considerable, and with college tuition for Jordan coming up next year," I said. "Drop it, everything is arranged." I convinced myself the conversation was about something else entirely. After all, Mom had promised this would be a family trip. She wouldn't lie about something so important, would she? The morning of our departure arrived with unusual tension. Trevor had already left with Jordan and Abigail, taking a separate car to make loading luggage easier. Mom rushed me through breakfast, checking her watch repeatedly. "Hurry up, Braxton. We can't be late." The airport was crowded with summer travelers, families reuniting, couples departing on romantic getaways. Mom guided me toward the check-in counter with unusual urgency. The attendant smiled professionally as Mom presented our documentation. "I see reservations for Diane Williams and—" "That's it," the attendant said, looking up from her computer. "No ticket for Braxton Hayes." My stomach dropped as I looked to Mom, expecting her to correct the obvious mistake. Instead, she gasped with such theatrical shock that I immediately knew something was wrong. "There must be some error," she said, voice pitched higher than normal. "Check again." The attendant's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams, but there's no reservation for Braxton Hayes on this flight or any flight today under your booking." Mom turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is terrible," she said, but her eyes didn't match her words. "But we can't miss our flight. The others are waiting at the gate." "Mom?" My voice cracked with confusion. "What do I do?" She reached into her purse and pulled out a $50 bill, pressing it into my hand. "You can figure it out, Braxton. You're smart." She was already backing away, pulling her carry-on bag behind her. "Call one of your friends. Stay with them until we get back." "But my phone." I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, intending to call someone immediately. "We'll only be gone a week," she continued, now several feet away. "You'll be fine." And then she turned and walked away, her designer sundress disappearing into the crowd as I stood rooted to the spot, $50 clutched in my suddenly sweaty palm. Panic rising, I pulled out my phone to call someone, anyone. But as I scrolled through my contacts, a cold realization dawned on me. All my emergency contacts were gone. My grandparents, my few close friends, even my basketball coach whose number I had for practice updates, all deleted. I tried calling Mom, but the call wouldn't go through. A notification appeared. "This number is not in service." An airport security officer approached, concern evident on his face. "Everything okay, son?" "My mom," I stammered. "She just left me here." The officer's expression shifted from concern to alarm. "What do you mean? Left you? Where was she going?" "Bahamas," I whispered, the reality crashing down on me. "She went to the Bahamas with her new husband and left me here." As the officer guided me toward the security office, a memory suddenly surfaced, sharp and clear. 2 nights ago, passing by the master bedroom, overhearing Mom on the phone. "He'll be fine for a week. It's not like we're leaving him forever." She had planned this all along. The airport security office smelled of coffee and industrial cleaner. I sat in a hard plastic chair, my suitcase between my knees, as Officer Patterson, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a receding hairline, made phone calls and occasionally asked me questions I could barely process. "Do you have any other relatives we can contact, Braxton?" he asked for the 3rd time. I shook my head, then paused. There was one person, but he might as well have been a stranger. My father, Alexander Hayes. For 2 years, Mom had carefully constructed a narrative about him. Deadbeat, alcoholic, a man who abandoned his family for a life of selfish pursuits. She'd spoken of him with such consistent contempt that I'd absorbed her version of reality without question. "He doesn't even send child support," she would say over dinner. "Not a penny. When birthday cards arrived from an unfamiliar address, they mysteriously disappeared from the mail pile." When I occasionally mentioned wondering about him, Mom would shut down the conversation with practiced efficiency. "He made his choice, Braxton. We weren't enough for him." The last time I'd spoken to him was nearly a year ago. Mom had reluctantly handed me the phone after he'd called repeatedly. The conversation was awkward, stilted by months of silence and the weight of unspoken accusations. "How's school?" he had asked. "Fine. Still playing basketball?" "Sometimes." After 5 minutes of painful small talk, I had made an excuse and ended the call, relieved to escape the discomfort but strangely hollow afterward. Now, sitting in the airport security office, I wondered if he was my only option. The alternative was child services, a system I knew nothing about beyond scary stories from TV shows. "There might be someone," I finally told Officer Patterson. "My dad." "Your father," he repeated, pen poised over his notepad. "Do you have his contact information?" I shook my head, then remembered something. After that last awkward call, Dad had sent me a letter. Inside was a business card with his phone number and a handwritten note. "Just in case you ever need me." Mom had tried to confiscate it, but I'd tucked it into my wallet behind my school ID, a secret lifeline I never thought I'd use. With shaking hands, I pulled out the card, now worn at the edges from being carried for months. Officer Patterson dialed the number on his desk phone, putting it on speaker. "Alexander Hayes," a voice answered after 2 rings, clear and professional. "Mr. Hayes, This is Officer Patterson with Airport Security at Denver International. I'm here with your son, Braxton. Silence then. Braxton? Is he okay? What happened? The immediate concern in his voice caught me off guard. This didn't sound like a man who had forgotten about his son. Officer Patterson explained the situation briefly, his voice neutral but the disapproval clear in his expression. Dad's responses became increasingly urgent. Put him on, please, Dad requested. Officer Patterson pushed the phone toward me. I stared at it for a moment before picking up the receiver. Dad? My voice sounded small even to my own ears. Braxton, he breathed, relief evident. Are you all right? I guess. I swallowed hard. Mom left me at the airport. She went to the Bahamas with Trevor and his kids. What? His voice sharpened with disbelief. She just left you there? Alone? She gave me $50, I added, as if that somehow made it better. Silence for a beat then. I'm coming to get you. Right now. Stay with Officer Patterson. I'll be there as soon as humanly possible. From where? I asked, suddenly realizing I had no idea where my father even lived. Seattle. But don't worry about that. I'll be there soon. The call ended, and I handed the phone back to Officer Patterson, a strange mixture of relief and disbelief washing over me. Would Dad actually come? Or was this just another empty promise? He says he's coming, I said, not entirely convinced. Officer Patterson nodded. Well, we'll wait and see. In the meantime, let's get you something to eat. The next few hours passed in a blur of anxiety and confusion. I tried repeatedly to use my phone, only to discover that the service had been deactivated entirely. To save money during vacation, I realized bitterly. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Officer Patterson bought me a burger and fries from an airport restaurant, waving away my attempt to pay with the $50 Mom had given me. Save that, he said. You might need it later. Later for what? I wondered. If Dad didn't show up, what would happen to me? Foster care? A group home? The uncertainty made the food taste like cardboard in my mouth. With Officer Patterson's permission, I used his computer to check Mom's social media. The first post had already appeared, a beaming selfie of Mom, Trevor, Jordan, and Abigail boarding their flight. Family vacation officially underway. Paradise, here we come. Family vacation. As if I had never existed. The comments were already accumulating. Have a fantastic time. You deserve this. What a beautiful family. And then, a single question from Mom's coworker. Where's Braxton? No reply. I closed the browser window, feeling sick. A text notification appeared on my dead phone's screen, somehow pushing through despite the deactivated service. From Abigail. Sorry you couldn't come. Mom said you chose to stay home. The lie was so complete, so calculated, that a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate abandonment, planned and executed with precision. My mother had erased me from her life with surgical efficiency, and I had been too blind to see it coming. Nearly 4 hours after the call to my father, a voice came over the airport intercom. Braxton Hayes, please report to the private aviation terminal. Braxton Hayes, to the private aviation terminal. Officer Patterson looked up from his paperwork. Private aviation? That's where the charter flights and private jets arrive. There must be some mistake, I said, gathering my backpack. My father couldn't possibly have a private jet. He was a deadbeat, remember? Officer Patterson escorted me across the airport to a separate building I hadn't even known existed. Inside was a sleek, minimalist lounge with leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a section of tarmac where several small jets were parked. Braxton! A man's voice called from across the room. I turned to see someone approaching quickly. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. The man in my faded memories had been disheveled, often unshaven, with slumped shoulders and tired eyes. This man wore a tailored suit, moved with confidence, and radiated a energy I couldn't reconcile with Mom's descriptions. Dad? I said uncertainly. He stopped a few feet away, clearly wanting to embrace me but sensing my hesitation. It's me, he confirmed, eyes scanning me from head to toe as if checking for injuries. Are you okay? Before I could answer, Officer Patterson stepped forward, hand extended. Mr. Hayes, I'm Officer Patterson. I'll need to see some identification before releasing Braxton into your custody." Dad immediately produced his driver's license and what appeared to be a stack of legal documents. Of course. I also brought copies of the custody agreement and my most recent child support payment records, in case they were needed. Officer Patterson reviewed the documents carefully, compared the photo ID to my father's face, then looked at me. "Is this your father, Braxton?" I nodded, still trying to process the disparity between the man before me and the villain from my mother's stories. "I'll need you to sign some paperwork," Officer Patterson told Dad. "And I should inform you that I've filed a report about this incident. Child Protective Services will likely follow up." "Good," Dad said firmly. "They should. What Diane did was abandonment, plain and simple." The formalities completed, Officer Patterson shook my hand. "Take care of yourself, Braxton. You're in good hands now." He handed me a card. "Call if you need anything." As Officer Patterson departed, an awkward silence fell between Dad and me. We were practically strangers, standing in an airport lounge with years of absence stretching between us. "My jet is refueling," Dad finally said. "Should be ready in about 20 minutes. Are you hungry?" "Your jet?" I echoed, unable to heed my surprise. A small, sad smile crossed his face. "There's a lot you don't know, Braxton. A lot your mother hasn't told you." The private lounge had a small buffet of sandwiches and snacks. Dad made a plate for each of us, and we sat in plush chairs facing the windows. "I run a tech company," he explained, seeing my continued confusion. "Cybersecurity solutions for healthcare systems. We went public 3 years ago." "You're rich?" I blurted, immediately embarrassed by my lack of tact. Dad chuckled softly. "Comfortable," he corrected. "The jet is a recent acquisition. Makes business travel more efficient." I picked at my sandwich, trying to align this new information with everything I thought I knew. "Mom said you were." I trailed off, suddenly reluctant to repeat the accusations. "A deadbeat?" Dad supplied, his expression turning serious. "An alcoholic who abandoned his family and never paid child support?" I nodded, avoiding his eyes. Dad set down his plate and pulled a slim leather portfolio from his briefcase. From it, he extracted a stack of papers and placed them on the table between us. "These are receipts for every child support payment I've made since the divorce," he said quietly. "Double the court-ordered amount, every month, without fail." I stared at the papers, recognizing Mom's signature on many of the receipts. "And these," he continued, producing another folder, "are copies of the birthday cards, letters, and invitations I've sent you over the past 2 years. All returned unopened." The folder contained dozens of envelopes, each marked "Return to Sender" in Mom's distinctive handwriting. Christmas cards, birthday cards, graduation invitations, all sent back without ever reaching me. But I struggled to make sense of it. Why would she lie? Dad sighed heavily. "That's a complicated question with no satisfying answer. Your mother and I had problems long before the divorce, Braxton. But I never abandoned you. I fought for joint custody. I tried to maintain contact. Your mother made that impossible. She said you chose to leave," I said, the foundation of my understanding crumbling beneath me. "I didn't choose the divorce," Dad replied gently. "Your mother filed the papers. She wanted out." And somehow, over time, the narrative changed. An announcement came over the lounge speakers that our jet was ready for boarding. Dad gathered the documents back into his briefcase, but I stopped him, needing to see one particular envelope. It was my 15th birthday card from 2 months ago. Inside was a handwritten note. "Braxton, not a day goes by that I don't think of you and miss you. I hope this year brings you happiness and success in everything you do. I'm always here for you, even when it seems I'm not. Love, Dad." Attached to the card was a check for $500 that I had never received. The reality of years of deliberate deception hit me like a physical blow. "She kept everything from me," I whispered, my voice breaking. "She made me think you didn't care." Dad's expression was pained, but controlled. "I'm so sorry, Braxton. I tried every legal avenue to maintain a relationship with you. Your mother fought me at every turn." We boarded the jet in silence, my mind still reeling. The interior was sleek and comfortable, with leather seats and polished wood accents. A woman with short dark hair greeted us warmly. "Braxton, this is Samantha, my executive assistant," Dad introduced. Sam, this is my son. I've heard so much about you, Samantha said, shaking my hand with genuine warmth. Your father talks about you all the time. The 3-hour flight to Seattle passed in a blur of revelations. Dad showed me his home on his tablet, a stunning modern house overlooking Lake Washington. He described how he had maintained a room for me there, always ready in case the custody situation changed. I never gave up hope, he said simply. By the time we landed in Seattle, night had fallen. A car was waiting to take us to Dad's house. As we drove through the quiet streets, I stared out the window, trying to absorb the seismic shift in my reality. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about my parents, had been carefully constructed fiction. Dad's house was even more impressive in person, all glass and cedar with spectacular views of the water. Inside, modern furnishings created a space that was simultaneously luxurious and comfortable. Your room is upstairs, second door on the right, Dad said. I hope it's okay. We can change anything you don't like. I climbed the stairs slowly, unsure what to expect. The door opened to reveal a spacious bedroom with a large desk, a gaming setup, a queen-sized bed, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The walls were painted a deep blue, my favorite color since childhood. How had he known? On the desk sat a framed photograph of me at age 13, from just before the divorce. Next to it was a stack of wrapped packages, each labeled with a missed occasion: birthday 14, Christmas, birthday 15. The dam broke. I sank onto the bed and began to sob, 2 years of confusion and hurt pouring out in wrenching waves. I cried for the relationship with my father that had been stolen from me. I cried for the mother I thought I had, who never really existed. I cried for my own blindness in not seeing through the lies. Dad appeared in the doorway but didn't enter, giving me the space to process my grief. Take all the time you need, he said softly. I'll be downstairs when you're ready to talk. Or not talk. Whatever you need. As he turned to leave, I managed to choke out the question that had been burning inside me since the airport. Why didn't you try harder? Why did you let her push you away? Dad paused, his hand on the door frame. I did try, Braxton. I tried everything legal and ethical. But your mother threatened to take you out of state if I pushed too hard. She said she'd make sure I never saw you again. He turned back to face me, eyes shining with unshed tears. I made the hardest choice a parent can make. I stepped back, hoping that someday you'd be old enough to hear the truth and make your own decisions. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. With that, he left me alone with my thoughts and a room full of evidence that, contrary to everything I'd been led to believe, my father had never really left me at all. The following days unfolded in a strange, dreamlike quality. I woke each morning expecting to find myself back in the small bedroom at the end of the hallway in Trevor's house. Instead, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted upstairs. Dad never pushed for immediate connection or forced conversations about the past. Instead, he created space for a relationship to develop organically. Breakfast together before he left for the office. Take-out dinner from a different Seattle restaurant each night. Weekend explorations of his adopted city. Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, Discovery Park. Slowly, tentatively, I began to relax into this new reality. Dad's home offered a freedom I hadn't experienced in years. My opinions were solicited and valued. My preferences mattered. Simple things, like choosing a restaurant or selecting a movie, became meaningful exercises in autonomy after years of being overlooked. Would you like to see my office? Dad asked one morning over breakfast, about a week after my arrival. No pressure. Just thought you might be interested in what I do. I agreed, curious about this part of his life. Hayes Cybersecurity Solutions occupied 3 floors of a sleek downtown building with views of Puget Sound. Dad's employees greeted him with obvious respect, and many seemed genuinely pleased to meet me. Your dad talks about you all the time, one developer told me, echoing Samantha's earlier comment. He has your basketball team photo on his desk. In Dad's corner office, I found evidence of his claim. Photos of me at various ages decorated his desk and shelves, alongside industry awards and company milestones. A framed jersey from my middle school basketball team hung on one wall. How did you get these? I asked, picking up a photo of me from a school concert last year. Your grandmother, Dad explained. Mom's mother. She never approved of how Diane handled the divorce. She's been sending me updates and photos when she can. The revelation that my maternal grandmother had maintained this secret connection with my father added another layer to the complex web of family dynamics I was only beginning to unravel. As we toured the office, Dad introduced me to his executive team, including Laura, a tall woman with auburn hair who greeted me with genuine warmth. Braxton, I've heard so much about you, she said, shaking my hand. Your father is thrilled to have you here. Only later, as we drove home, did Dad explain that Laura was more than a colleague. We've been dating for about a year, he said, eyes on the road. She's been incredibly supportive through everything with your mother. I hope you don't mind that she knows about the situation. It's okay, I assured him, surprised to find I meant it. Laura had treated me with respect rather than the forced familiarity that had characterized my early interactions with Trevor. Later that evening, as we ate Chinese takeout on the deck overlooking the lake, Dad broached a subject I'd been avoiding. We need to discuss your mother, he said gently. And what happens next? I pushed a piece of orange chicken around my plate, appetite suddenly diminished. What do you mean? What she did was abandonment, Braxton. It's a serious issue, legally speaking. We need to consider our options. Options? I repeated. Dad set down his chopsticks. I've contacted my attorney. Given the circumstances, we have grounds to petition for a change in the custody arrangement. The thought of a legal battle made my stomach clench. Do we have to? We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, Dad assured me. But there's something I need to show you. From his office, Dad retrieved a large accordion file labeled with my name. Inside were meticulously organized documents spanning the past 2 years. Legal correspondence, school records, medical information, and financial statements. I've been documenting everything since the divorce, Dad explained. Every denied visitation request, every returned letter, every payment. I knew someday the truth would come out, and I wanted to be prepared. The thoroughness of his documentation was staggering. Dad had compiled a comprehensive record of Mom's systematic efforts to erase him from my life, along with evidence of her increasingly negligent parenting. I hired a private investigator, Dad admitted, showing me a series of reports. Not to spy on you or invade your privacy, but to ensure you were safe and being properly cared for. I became concerned when your grandmother mentioned you were often left alone overnight while your mother and Trevor went on weekend trips. The reports confirmed what I had normalized. Frequent absences, missed parent-teacher conferences, forgotten medical appointments, and a pattern of prioritizing Trevor's children over me. There's more, Dad said hesitantly. Your medical records show you haven't had a physical in over 18 months. And your dental work that was scheduled last year was never completed. I touched my back molar reflexively, remembering the cavity that still occasionally ached. Mom had canceled the follow-up appointment, claiming schedule conflicts, and never rescheduled. She always said money was tight, I murmured. That we couldn't afford extras. Dad's expression darkened. Money was not the issue, Braxton. I've been paying twice the required child support, plus covering all medical and dental insurance premiums. Your education fund has been receiving monthly deposits since you were born. Education fund? I asked, confused. Your college fund, Dad clarified. Currently just over $200,000. The revelation left me speechless. Mom had repeatedly told me college would depend on scholarships, that there was no money set aside for my education. As we continued through the documentation, a disturbing picture emerged of financial mismanagement at best, outright fraud at worst. Child support payments that should have covered my needs were instead funding trips, designer purchases, and home renovations that primarily benefited Trevor's children. I don't understand, I said, overwhelmed by the evidence before me. How could she do this? Dad sighed heavily. I wish I had an answer that made sense, Braxton. Sometimes people change in ways we can't predict or understand. That night, I checked Mom's social media before bed, something that had become a masochistic ritual. New photos appeared daily. Mom and Trevor toasting with champagne on a catamaran, the kids parasailing, elaborate seafood dinners at beachfront restaurants. The captions grew increasingly effusive about their perfect family vacation and making memories that will last a lifetime. Not a single mention of me. Not one acknowledgement that their perfect family was missing a member. Comments asking about my absence continued to be ignored, though I noticed Trevor appeared increasingly uncomfortable in each new photo, his smile seeming more forced with each passing day. 3 days into their vacation, an Instagram message appeared from Abigail. "Are you okay? Mom won't talk about where you are. She gets mad when anyone asks." I didn't reply, unsure what to say or whom to trust. Dad and I settled into a cautious routine, both of us navigating the unfamiliar territory of our reconnection. He never pushed for details about my life with Mom, but was attentive when I volunteered information. He never criticized Mom directly, even when presented with evidence of her deception, allowing me to process my complicated feelings without influence. One evening, as we watched a Mariners game together, Dad received a call that visibly disturbed him. After a brief, tense conversation, he turned to me with a serious expression. "That was my attorney," he said. "Your mother's vacation ends tomorrow. She'll be arriving home to find you gone. We need to be prepared for her reaction." The reality I had been avoiding crashed back with full force. Soon, Mom would discover I had left. Soon, she would learn I had connected with Dad. Soon, the carefully constructed narrative she had maintained for years would unravel. And I had no idea what would happen next. The day Mom was scheduled to return from the Bahamas, my anxiety reached fever pitch. Dad had taken the day off work, canceling meetings to ensure he was present for whatever might unfold. His attorney remained on standby, prepared to intervene if necessary. "You don't have to talk to her if you're not ready," Dad reassured me over breakfast. "In fact, it might be better to wait until things cool down." I pushed my untouched eggs around the plate. "Will she try to make me come back?" Dad's expression was carefully neutral. Legally, the custody agreement gives her primary physical custody. But what she did constitutes abandonment, which changes things significantly. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. I jumped at every sound, half expecting Mom to appear on the doorstep demanding my return. By mid-afternoon, with no contact, I began to wonder if she had even noticed my absence. Then my phone, which Dad had reactivated with a new number, lit up with a notification. Mom had posted on social media, "Home. From paradise. Back to reality. But filled with amazing memories." Attached was a photo of their arrival at the Denver airport, all smiles and vacation tans. Still no mention of me. "Maybe she doesn't care that I'm gone," I said to Dad, showing him the post. He frowned slightly. "She'll care once she realizes where you are." His prediction proved accurate. At precisely 6:17 that evening, my new phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from Mom's number appeared in rapid succession. "Braxton, where are you? Come home immediately. This isn't funny. I'm calling the police if you don't respond right now." Then, calls began. One after another, the screen lighting up with Mom's name. I stared at the phone, frozen in indecision. "You don't have to answer," Dad reminded me gently. But some part of me needed to hear her voice, needed confirmation that she had actually abandoned me so callously. On the 5th call, I picked up, putting the phone on speaker so Dad could hear. "Braxton!" Mom's voice held a frantic edge I'd never heard before. "Where are you? I've been worried sick." The blatant lie knocked the wind from me. She hadn't tried to contact me once during her entire vacation. "You left me at the airport," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "You went on vacation without me." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, her tone instantly shifting. "We had a miscommunication. I thought you were staying with friends." "You deleted my contacts," I countered. "You deactivated my phone. You told everyone I chose to stay home." A pause, then, "Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you right now." "I'm with Dad," I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. When Mom finally spoke, her voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Your father? You contacted that man?" "Officer Patterson called him when you abandoned me at the airport," I clarified, anger beginning to replace anxiety. "He came immediately. On his private jet. Put him on the phone." The command was sharp, brooking no argument. I looked to Dad, who nodded and took the phone. "Hello, Diane," he said calmly. "You had no right." Mom's voice was loud enough that I could hear without the speaker. "No right to take my son. I'm calling the police right now and reporting a kidnapping." "I suggest you reconsider that course of action," Dad replied, his tone remaining measured. Officer Patterson at Denver International filed a report documenting your abandonment of a minor. Child Protective Services has been notified. And I have a record of every attempt I've made to maintain a relationship with my son that you've systematically blocked. You're twisting everything, Mom hissed. Braxton belongs with me. The court gave me primary custody. The court made that decision based on information you provided, Dad countered. Information that was, at best, misleading. I'm coming to get him, Mom insisted. Tell me where you live. That won't be happening, Diane. My attorney has already filed for an emergency custody hearing based on documented abandonment. Until that hearing, Braxton will remain with me. You can't do this. Mom's voice cracked with fury. After everything I've done for him? The phrase hit me like a slap. After everything she'd done for me? Like abandoning me at an airport? Like lying about my father for years? Like diverting my college fund? I motioned for the phone, suddenly needing to speak. Dad handed it over with a questioning look. Mom, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. What exactly have you done for me? Braxton, this isn't you talking, she replied, switching tactics instantly. Your father is manipulating you. You know how much I love you. How I've sacrificed everything for you. You left me at an airport with $50, I said flatly. You deleted my contacts. You deactivated my phone. You told everyone I chose to stay home. What part of that says love to you? You don't understand the pressure I've been under, Mom said, her voice softening to the persuasive tone she used when trying to sell a particularly dubious explanation. Trevor wanted a special trip with just his children. I was trying to balance everyone's needs. By abandoning your own son? I challenged. Don't be dramatic, Mom snapped, patience evaporating. It was a mistake. Fine, I admit that. But you're blowing this completely out of proportion. The conversation continued in this vein, Mom alternating between defensive anger, manipulative concern, and outright denial of reality. Throughout it all, Dad remained a steady presence beside me, never interrupting or attempting to control the narrative. Finally, exhausted by the emotional gymnastics, I ended the call with a simple statement. I'm staying with Dad for now. We'll talk after the custody hearing. Moments after hanging up, a new text arrived, this one from a number I didn't recognize. Braxton, it's Trevor. Can we talk privately? After consulting with Dad, who encouraged me to trust my instincts, I called the number. Thank God, Trevor answered immediately. Are you safe? Your mother told me you decided to stay with friends during our trip. I had no idea she left you at the airport. His apparent shock seemed genuine, adding yet another layer to the complex situation. I'm with my dad, I told him. In Seattle. Your father? Trevor sounded confused. But Diane said he was not in the picture. She lied, I said simply. About pretty much everything. A heavy sigh came through the line. I'm beginning to see that. Listen, Braxton, I want you to know I had no part in what happened at the airport. If I had known what Diane was planning, I would never have allowed it. Part of me wanted to believe him, while another part remained skeptical. You went on the vacation, I pointed out. You posted the photos. I know, he admitted, sounding genuinely remorseful. Things haven't been right between your mother and me for some time. This situation has brought a lot of issues to light. We spoke for nearly 20 minutes. Trevor revealed that he had confronted Mom upon discovering I was staying with friends rather than joining the vacation. She had claimed it was my choice, that I preferred spending time with my basketball teammates to family vacation. I should have questioned it more, Trevor acknowledged. The whole trip felt wrong without you there. Jordan and Abigail kept asking about you too. Your mother shut down every conversation about your absence. By the end of the call, Trevor had offered to provide a statement supporting my father in the custody hearing and promised to ensure Mom didn't dispose of any of my belongings from their home. Whatever you decide, Braxton, I support you, he said before hanging up. And I'm truly sorry for my role in all this, even if it was unknowing. That night, as Dad and I ate dinner on the deck watching the sunset over Lake Washington, he broached the subject of the upcoming legal proceedings. The hearing is scheduled for next week, he explained. Judge Reynolds has a reputation for being fair but thorough. She'll want to hear from you directly. The thought of testifying against my own mother in court made my stomach churn. What will happen? After, I mean. Dad considered this carefully before answering. Best case scenario, I'm granted temporary primary custody pending a more permanent arrangement. Worst case, the judge maintains the status quo, but implements supervised visitation and mandatory family counseling. And if Mom wins? I couldn't help asking. Dad's expression tightened momentarily before he controlled it. Then we appeal, and we keep fighting. I won't lose you again, Braxton. The quiet determination in his voice was more reassuring than any dramatic promise could have been. For the first time since being abandoned at the airport, I felt a sense of security. Whatever happened next, I wasn't facing it alone. As we cleared the dinner dishes, my phone chimed with another notification. A voicemail from Mom, her tone now tearful and wounded. Braxton, please come home. I made a mistake, I admit it. But you belong here with me. Trevor and the kids miss you. Your room is waiting. Please don't do this to our family. Our family. As if the vacation photos hadn't made it abundantly clear who constituted family in her mind. I deleted the message without replying and went upstairs to the room my father had maintained for me for 2 years, surrounded by evidence that at least one of my parents had never stopped considering me family, even when separated by distance and lies. The week leading up to the custody hearing passed in a blur of preparations and anxiety. Dad's attorney, Patricia Winters, visited the house twice to prepare me for what to expect in court. The judge will want to hear directly from you, she explained during our second meeting. Your experiences, in your own words. No one expects you to be perfect or to have all the answers. Just tell the truth as you experienced it. Will Mom be there? I asked, dreading the prospect of facing her across a courtroom. Yes, Patricia confirmed gently. Both parents are required to attend, but you'll be protected. The judge won't allow any intimidation or manipulation. While Dad and Patricia handled the legal preparations, I struggled with nightmares and concentration issues. The stark reality of testifying against my own mother weighed heavily on me. During the day, I could rationalize the necessity. At night, childhood memories of Mom reading bedtime stories or bandaging scraped knees would surface, making me question whether I was doing the right thing. Dad noticed my internal struggle and arranged for me to speak with Dr. Marshall, a child psychologist specializing in family trauma. What you're experiencing is completely normal, Dr. Marshall assured me during our first session. The cognitive dissonance between the mother you remember from early childhood and the mother who abandoned you at the airport is enormous. Your brain is trying to reconcile these contradictory experiences. Sometimes I feel like I'm betraying her, I admitted. Like I'm being disloyal. That's a common feeling among children caught in high-conflict custody situations, Dr. Marshall explained. But remember, you didn't create this situation. You're not responsible for the choices your mother made. Your only responsibility is to yourself and your own well-being. 3 days before the hearing, an unexpected visitor arrived at Dad's house. The security system announced someone at the gate, and the monitor showed Trevor standing alone on the driveway. Dad looked to me for guidance. It's your call, Braxton. Do you want to see him? After a moment's hesitation, I nodded. Trevor looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and a tenseness to his shoulders that hadn't been present in vacation photos from just a week earlier. Thank you for seeing me, he said as Dad showed him to the living room. I wouldn't have come, but I thought this information should be delivered in person. He placed a manila envelope on the coffee table. After our phone conversation, I did some investigating of my own. What I found disturbed me deeply. Inside the envelope were bank statements, text messages, and email printouts, documenting a pattern of deception that went beyond what even Dad had uncovered. Diane told me she never received child support, Trevor explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. She claimed Alexander was years behind in payments, which justified her asking me to cover certain expenses for Braxton. I never questioned it. The statements showed regular deposits from Dad into an account I never knew existed, followed by immediate transfers to Mom's personal account, which she had kept separate from the joint account she shared with Trevor. There's more, Trevor continued, visibly uncomfortable. Jordan overheard your mother planning the airport scenario. Apparently, she'd been laying the groundwork for weeks, gradually convincing me that you would prefer staying home with friends to joining us on vacation. Dad, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. Jordan heard this? Would he be willing to testify to that effect? Trevor nodded firmly. Both Jordan and Abigail want to make statements. They were horrified when they learned what really happened. They consider Braxton family, regardless of what Diane has done. The revelation that my step-siblings were willing to stand against their own mother on my behalf was staggering. Despite the tension in our blended family, they had chosen truth over loyalty. "There's one more thing," Trevor said, his expression grim. When we returned from vacation and found Braxton gone, Diane was initially furious. But later that night, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. He paused, visibly struggling with what came next. She said, and I quote, "Finally getting rid of the extra baggage. Now we can be a real family." The words hit like a physical blow. Extra baggage. That's all I had been to her, an inconvenient remnant of a previous life. "I've filed for separation," Trevor concluded. "I can't stay married to someone capable of this level of cruelty to their own child." After Trevor left, promising to appear at the hearing with Jordan and Abigail, Dad found me sitting on the deck, staring blankly at the water. "You okay?" he asked, settling into the chair beside me. "She called me baggage," I said, voice hollow. Her own son. Baggage. Dad didn't offer platitudes or attempt to soften the blow. Instead, he simply placed his hand on my shoulder, a steady presence, as I processed yet another painful revelation. "I don't understand how someone can change so completely," I finally said. "Was she always like this?" Dad considered the question carefully. "The Diane I married was ambitious and sometimes self-centered, but not cruel, not calculated like this. Something changed over the years. I wish I could explain it." The day of the hearing arrived with a Seattle downpour that matched my turbulent emotions. Dad had arranged for a new suit, navy blue with a subtle pattern that looked both professional and age-appropriate. As we drove downtown to the King County Courthouse, his quiet confidence helped steady my nerves. "Remember," he said as we pulled into the parking garage, "just tell the truth. Your story is powerful enough without embellishment." The courtroom was smaller than I had imagined, with polished wood furnishings and an atmosphere of subdued tension. Mom was already seated with her attorney, a sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit. She attempted to make eye contact as we entered, her expression a practiced blend of maternal concern and wounded dignity. I deliberately looked away, focusing instead on Trevor, Jordan, and Abigail, who sat in the row behind Mom, pointedly separated from her by several feet. Judge Reynolds, a stern-looking woman with silver-streaked dark hair, entered and called the emergency hearing to order. The proceedings began with statements from both attorneys, Patricia presenting a compelling case for immediate custody modification based on documented abandonment and pattern of neglect, while Mom's attorney characterized the airport incident as a regrettable miscommunication and painted Dad as an opportunist exploiting a single mistake. When called to testify, Mom delivered a performance worthy of an award, tears glistening as she described the misunderstanding at the airport and her devastation upon returning home to find me gone. "I've dedicated my life to raising my son," she declared, voice trembling perfectly. "One mistake shouldn't erase 15 years of devoted parenting." Judge Reynolds listened impassively before asking pointed questions about the deactivated phone, deleted contacts, and social media posts that failed to mention my absence. Mom's answers grew increasingly defensive and contradictory. When my turn came, I approached the witness stand with knees threatening to buckle. But as I began to speak, describing not just the airport abandonment but the years of gradual erasure leading up to it, my voice gained strength. "It wasn't just one day or one decision," I explained to the judge. "It was years of being pushed aside, forgotten, made to feel less important than everyone else in the house. The airport was just the final step in a process that started long before." Mom's attorney attempted to portray me as a resentful teenager manipulated by my father, but Judge Reynolds shut down this line of questioning quickly. "The young man's testimony stands on its own," she stated firmly, "and it aligns with the documented evidence presented." The testimony from Trevor and my step-siblings proved devastating to Mom's case. Jordan's description of overhearing Mom planning the abandonment directly contradicted her claim of miscommunication. Abigail tearfully recounted how Mom had instructed them never to mention my absence to anyone during the vacation. Most damning was Trevor's account of the baggage comment, which caused an audible murmur in the courtroom. Throughout these revelations, I watched Mom's facade crack, the practiced maternal concern giving way to cold fury as her carefully constructed narrative collapsed. When Officer Patterson testified via video link about finding me alone and distraught at the airport, She visibly struggled to maintain composure. After 4 grueling hours of testimony, Judge Reynolds called a brief recess to review the evidence. Those 30 minutes of waiting felt longer than the entire hearing. Dad remained a steady presence beside me, while Mom huddled with her attorney across the room, occasionally casting glances in our direction. When Judge Reynolds returned, her decision was unequivocal. Based on the preponderance of evidence presented today, I find that Diane Williams did knowingly and willfully abandon her minor child at Denver International Airport, creating a situation of significant emotional harm and potential physical danger. This act, combined with the documented pattern of neglectful parenting preceding it, constitutes grounds for immediate modification of the existing custody arrangement. She continued, her voice firm and clear. Temporary full custody of Braxton Hayes is hereby awarded to Alexander Hayes, pending a full custody evaluation. Diane Williams will be permitted supervised visitation at the discretion of the court-appointed family counselor, contingent upon her completion of required parenting classes and psychological evaluation. The judge addressed additional matters regarding the misappropriation of child support funds, ordering a full financial audit and potential restitution. Throughout these pronouncements, Mom sat rigidly, her expression transitioning from disbelief to outrage. As the hearing concluded, Mom attempted to approach me, only to be intercepted by her attorney. Their heated whispered exchange suggested the lawyer was urging restraint that Mom seemed unwilling to exercise. Outside the courthouse, in the still falling rain, Trevor and my step-siblings approached to say goodbye. "We're moving back to Denver tomorrow," Trevor explained. "But we want you to know you're welcome to visit anytime." Abigail hugged me awkwardly. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do." "It's okay," I assured her, surprised to find I meant it. "You're doing the right thing now." As they departed, I caught a glimpse of Mom watching from the courthouse steps, her expression unreadable through the rain. For a moment, our eyes met across the distance, and I waited for some sign of remorse or understanding. Instead, she turned away sharply and walked to her waiting taxi, shoulders rigid with undiminished indignation. "Are you okay?" Dad asked quietly as we watched her departure. "No," I admitted honestly, "but I think I will be." 6 months passed, bringing changes I never could have imagined that day at the Denver airport. Seattle transformed from unfamiliar territory to home, the initial awkwardness with Dad evolving into a comfortable rapport based on mutual respect and genuine affection. My new school, a mid-sized private academy with strong academic and athletic programs, provided a fresh start. Without the weight of invisibility I'd carried for years, I discovered a confidence previously buried. I made the varsity basketball team, developed close friendships, and maintained a GPA that opened discussions about colleges previously considered beyond reach. Weekly sessions with Dr. Marshall helped me process the complex emotions surrounding Mom's betrayal. "Healing isn't linear," she reminded me during particularly difficult sessions. "Some days will be harder than others, and that's normal." Those words proved especially valuable when dealing with Mom's inconsistent attempts at reconnection. After initially refusing to comply with the court's requirements, she eventually began the mandated parenting classes and therapy, though her participation seemed motivated more by legal obligation than genuine insight. Our first supervised visitation, 3 months after the hearing, was as tense and awkward as I had feared. Mom vacillated between defensive justification and manipulative nostalgia, attempting to rewrite our shared history rather than acknowledging the damage done. "We were happy before your father interfered," she insisted, ignoring the court-appointed supervisor's gentle redirections. "We can be a family again." "We weren't happy," I corrected quietly. "You just didn't notice I wasn't." Subsequent visits showed marginal improvement, as Mom grudgingly recognized that her usual tactics no longer worked. The supervisor's presence enforced boundaries I had never been able to establish on my own. Dad never pressed for details about these visits, respecting my privacy while ensuring I knew support was available if needed. "This is your relationship to navigate," he explained. "I trust your judgment, but I'm here whenever you want to talk." The final custody ruling came shortly before Christmas, confirming Dad's primary custody while establishing a visitation schedule for Mom conditional on her continued compliance with therapy and parenting classes. The judge also ordered financial restitution for the misappropriated child support and education funds, a ruling that prompted Mom's only genuine apology to date. "I never meant to hurt you financially," she said during a December visitation, sounding sincere for the first time. "Things got complicated with Trevor, and the money. I lost track. It wasn't about the money," I told her. "It was about what the money represented. Every diverted dollar was a choice to prioritize someone else over me." That conversation marked a subtle shift in our interactions. While Mom never fully acknowledged the emotional damage of her abandonment, she began showing glimmers of genuine remorse for specific actions. Small recognitions, perhaps, but significant in their departure from blanket denials. Meanwhile, life with Dad continued to unfold with unexpected richness. Weekends became opportunities for shared experiences: hiking in the Cascade Mountains, attending Seahawks games, learning to sail on Lake Washington. Dad introduced me to his work with a natural enthusiasm that never felt forced, including me in age-appropriate discussions about the business, without pressure to follow his path. "College choices should be about your passions, not mine," he insisted during our increasingly frequent discussions about the future. "My job is to support whatever direction you choose." Trevor and my step-siblings maintained regular contact despite the geographical distance. Jordan, now applying to colleges himself, often sought my input on essays and applications, while Abigail sent weekly updates about her life in Denver. Trevor, in the midst of finalizing his divorce from Mom, consistently demonstrated the parental concern that Mom had only ever performed rather than felt. Perhaps most surprising was my developing relationship with Laura, Dad's girlfriend. Rather than forcing an immediate connection, she had given me space to adjust, allowing a natural rapport to develop over shared interests in photography and classic films. By spring, our Sunday morning photography expeditions had become a comfortable ritual, her technical expertise complementing my developing eye for composition. "She's good for you," I told Dad one evening after she had left following dinner. "You seem happy together." His surprised smile confirmed what I had already suspected. He had been cautiously monitoring my reaction to her presence, unwilling to prioritize his relationship over my comfort. "She is good for me," he agreed. "But what matters most is that you're comfortable with our relationship." "I am," I assured him, meaning it completely. "She treats you well, and she respects my place in your life." As the one-year anniversary of the airport abandonment approached, I found myself reflecting on the seismic changes of the past 12 months. The traumatized, confused teenager standing alone in Denver International had transformed into someone stronger, more confident, and surrounded by genuine support. Dad marked the anniversary not with somber remembrance, but with forward-looking celebration, presenting me with an internship opportunity at his company for the upcoming summer. "Only if you're interested," he emphasized. No pressure either way. The offer represented everything that had changed: recognition of my autonomy, support without obligation, and inclusion in his world without absorption of my identity. That same week brought an unexpected letter from Mom, the first communication outside our supervised visits. Unlike her previous attempts at contact, this message contained no justifications or manipulations, no rewriting of history or artificial nostalgia. "I realize now that I failed you in ways I'm only beginning to understand," she wrote. "My therapist calls it narcissistic tendencies exacerbated by insecurity and status anxiety. Those are clinical terms for being selfish and caring too much about appearances. None of it excuses what I did to you. Nothing could. I'm not asking for forgiveness I haven't earned. I just want you to know that I recognize the harm I caused, and I am truly sorry." The letter ended with a simple request to maintain our current visitation schedule, with no pressure for increased contact or promises of dramatic transformation. Just acknowledgement and respect for boundaries, perhaps the most meaningful gift she had ever given me. My high school graduation arrived the following month, a milestone celebrated with unexpected fullness. Dad sat front and center, proudly filming my valedictorian speech with unabashed paternal pride. Laura beside him, beaming with what appeared to be genuine pride rather than performative enthusiasm. Trevor, Jordan, and Abigail made the trip from Denver, their presence a welcome reminder that family connections can transcend legal dissolutions. Several rows back, maintaining the respectful distance established by months of cautious reconnection, sat Mom, her applause seeming genuinely supportive rather than self-congratulatory for the first time I could remember. The celebration dinner afterward, hosted at Dad's home with catering from my favorite Seattle restaurant, brought together this unconventional family configuration without the tension I would have expected. Mom and Dad maintained civil distance. Trevor engaged Laura in surprisingly animated conversation about photography, and my step-siblings integrated seamlessly with my school friends. As the evening wound down, Dad pulled me aside, presenting an envelope with uncharacteristic formality. "I've been saving this for the right moment," he explained, "and this feels like it." Inside was documentation of a trust fund he had established years ago, separate from the education account Mom had mismanaged. The fund, now substantial after years of consistent investment, represented both financial security for my future and tangible evidence of his unwavering commitment during our years of separation. "I never stopped planning for your future," Dad said simply, "even when I couldn't be part of your present." Later that night, after guests had departed and the house had quieted, I stood on the deck overlooking Lake Washington, contemplating the journey from abandoned child to confident graduate. The path had been neither straight nor easy, marked by painful revelations and difficult truths. Yet standing under the star-filled Seattle sky, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed impossibly distant. Family, I had learned, was defined not by blood or legal documents, but by consistent presence, genuine support, and unwavering respect. Love was not a performance staged for social media consumption, but quiet reliability when needed most. Home was not a physical location, but a sense of belonging and acceptance. These were not the lessons I would have chosen to learn through abandonment and betrayal, but they were lessons that would guide me forward, shaping decisions and relationships with hard-earned wisdom. As I turned to go inside, I caught sight of Dad through the window, arranging coffee cups for the morning with the same thoughtful attention he brought to everything concerning my well-being. This man who had never stopped fighting for his place in my life, who had maintained a room and heart space for me through years of forced absence, represented everything family should be. The journey from that desperate day at Denver International to this peaceful night in Seattle spanned more than mere physical distance. It measured the gulf between abandonment and belonging, between performative care and genuine love, between a life of emotional scarcity and one of abundant support. I had been left behind, but in that painful abandonment, I had found my way forward to the family and future I truly deserved. What would you do if a parent abandoned you? Have you ever experienced someone choosing appearances over genuine connection? Remember that family is defined by actions, not just blood. Comment below with your thoughts. Like if this story resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming betrayal, and share with anyone who needs to be reminded that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings strength to anyone facing similar struggles.